All right, real talk. Everybody loves the idea of a long project, a full season, a career mode, creating your whole universe, or just a replay that you feel like can span decades. And then you hit week 6, and suddenly you realize, looking at your notes, and you're saying, like, who approved this? Oh, me. That's the grind. The part where the hobby turns into a second job. Except HR is also you, and you keep scheduling meetings anyway, which is why today's episode is perfect. Because if you've ever thought, man, I could really use a helping hand to help this thing moving on, then you're not alone. I'm joined today by Andy Sexton, and we're talking co-op projects, the kind of shared tabletop sports journeys that actually keep the momentum alive when solo willpower starts running on fumes. This is the Tabletop SportCast. All right, welcome back to the Tabletop SportCast, your home for sports board games, interviews, reviews, and project planning, because the best sports stories aren't just watched, they're played. And today we're talking about one of the best antidotes to the long project grind, co-op projects. Because here's the truth, big tabletop sports projects are awesome, but they're also heavy. They ask for time, consistency, attention, and just enough organization to keep the wheels from coming off. And if you're doing it solo, sooner or later you hit that moment when you don't need more excitement, you need more support. A second set of eyes, someone to keep the pace, someone to share the load, and keep the story moving. That's why I'm thrilled about today's guest, Andy Sexton. Andy isn't just interested in co-op projects. He's actually out there leading multiple co-ops right now, helping organize them, keep them active, and make them fun for everyone involved. And in this conversation, we're going to dig into what that looks like in practice, how his co-ops are structured, how they stay engaging over time, and what leadership and commissioner energy looks like when the goal isn't just to finish, it's to keep the group invested and excited. Now, last week we had the winter show, episode 238, and that was a similar one. We talked a little bit about my projects and how I'm planning them. But as you had heard in that one, what I tend to do is shoot for medium and smaller size projects. And that's how I figure out how to keep them more in my solo management. But I do love taking part in some of the co-ops too. And I've been jumping in and out of a lot of the co-ops that Andy runs as I go through and try to plan things like my featured tabled Fridays, or just, have a game that I want to get on the table. And even this year, as I discussed last week, my quarterly project is really built around one of those co-ops. So this has been a conversation I've been wanting to have for a little while with Andy, and really glad he was able to take some time to sit down and discuss that with me today. Talking about my weekly highlight. Well, I put a wrap on my 2024 Mets project, shared a little bit of the details for this one on the Facebook page. We'll probably get into that project a little deeper in one of the upcoming episodes. What I will tell you is this. The last couple of days, knowing I needed to go like 2-3, and I ended up, I think, went 1-4, struggled down the stretch. And man, rolling those games got really tight when I knew like the pressure was on. Now, as it turns out, the Mets still would have qualified for the playoffs based on their head-to-head meetings with the Arizona Diamondbacks. We ended up beating the Diamondbacks in 5 out of 7 games. So the Braves ended up going past us in the wild card standings. They get the number 2 wild card seed behind San Diego, and we end up taking the final wild card spot due to tiebreakers over Arizona. So really, as the Mets really did, stumbled into the gates there. Across the finish line. They really did have a good run there in the second half of the 2024 season in real life. In mine, it was much more balanced across had some injuries down the stretch that started to impact our record a little bit. Lost a couple of starting pitchers for a week or two, and had to go with some scrub starters. That really started to hurt, impact things. And we'll talk more about the overall project in probably a week or two as I'm looking ahead at the schedule. All right, getting back to Andy and his co-ops. What we're going to talk about today is like the things that really make a co-op click, how to set some expectations without killing the fun, how to make sure you kind of divide the responsibilities, and, we won't really get into I've got some strategies that I'll discuss afterwards on what to do if you feel like the momentum's starting to dip, as well as some of his key takeaways. All right, so we'll do that after the interview. But what we'll do now is go over to the interview that I did with Andy Sexton earlier this week. All right, I am sitting down tonight with Andy Sexton, and we are going to be talking co-ops tonight. Andy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, sir. Glad to be here. I appreciate you having me on.
My pleasure. As you've probably heard before, and we had you on during the anniversary show last summer. We got a chance to talk for a couple minutes there, but figured it was a topic certainly worth revisiting again. But before we get into that, let's do a little bit more introductions for you. And as you've probably heard, I'd like to start with kind of like your earliest tabletop gaming experiences. Like, what was the games that got you into tabletop gaming, and how old were you, and where did it all start for you?
Yeah, definitely. So I am the sixth of 7 children in my family, so a big family. And I can remember, I was probably like 5 or 6 years old playing sports games. My mom always used to say, you learned how to reading the sports page. So I had the newspaper out every day. And so I was always into sports and sports games. And I can remember playing a baseball game, and I don't know what baseball game it was, with my brother. My older brother's 4 years older than me. And I remember he would always win every single time. And it was like, I couldn't do anything in this baseball game. In this baseball game, there was 3 tiles that you would choose from, and they had 1, 2, 3 on the back of them, but on the front of them was just a picture of the same picture. So you had these 3 tiles, and one person would get, which one they were going to use for the batter, and the other one would and if they matched, then the pitcher would win, and if they didn't match, then the batter would do better. And well, he matched me every single time. Come to find out years later that he had them marked, and had them all marked so that he could make me feel terrible about it. But that's probably the first thing I can remember gaming wise. But my grandfather, he was really big into sports. I was not super close with him, but every time that I did get together with him, he was the one that was really into sports. And when he passed away, we actually found sports games that he had created for himself to play, which I thought was really interesting because he didn't have a lot of influence on me in it, but he obviously had the same feelings that I do about it. He created his own games and stuff, which I thought was pretty cool.
Nice. All right. So an unknown game. And then as you kind of got into doing it individually, has this been a hobby that you have stayed with since, being the 6 or 7 year old, or?
Yeah, all my life. Even, I mean, in high school, I can remember having the games out on the floor of my bedroom and playing old Avalon Hill, Status Pro. I had all the Status Pro games. That was kind of my, when you're back in those days, you didn't have all these different games that you could do. And I just happened to come across one of them and then went out and searched out the rest.
Yeah.
The Status Pro Football, I think, was the very first one that I had and really enjoyed. And I know because I still have it. My season for that was 83. So I can tell you how long ago that was. But and then the one that I played the most actually is the Status Pro basketball game.
Oh, really?
And basketball is probably, of the big 4, basketball's my least favorite. I still follow it because I love all sports and it fills time, but it's probably the one that I'm least into. But that game, for whatever reason, was always one of my favorites, and I played that. I mean, all my life, my whole life.
Yeah.
I played that game. I think I got it when I was like 12 years old, and I've played it ever since.
Nice.
And then I played the auto racing game from Avalon Hill as well. I played that one a lot.
Is that a speed circuit?
It was it's just called auto racing. It was the
auto racing.
USAC one. Yeah.
Yes, I know which one you're talking about.
And yeah, I can remember my wife when we were first married, and she would always laugh because the cars would make that noise as you moved them along through that.
That's awesome. So growing up, what were some of your biggest like sports influences? Favorite teams, favorite players? I mean, where did it revolve around for you?
Yeah, so I've kind of lived all over in my life. My father, he's actually an Episcopal priest, is what he ended up doing. So I kind of moved from different places, but I was born in Florida, just outside of, or in Orlando, I was born. And then I lived in Lakeland, which is in between Orlando and Tampa for a while. Big Dolphins fan. My number one, NFL is my number one, period. I love the NFL, and I'm a huge Dolphins fan. Unfortunately, for my whole adult life, it hasn't been all that fun being a huge Dolphins fan, but yeah, I was big Marino fan, of course. Growing up that was what it was all about, was Marino, and I went to his, when he got inducted into the Ring of Honor in Miami, I was there. When he went into the Hall of Fame, we were there. So yeah, definitely been that my whole life. But my other teams and other sports kind of come from all over because of how much I moved around. Like I lived in Wisconsin. We lived there for about 7 years. So I'm a big University of Wisconsin Badger fan. And that's my college teams. And then and then I lived, so after, when I was about 14, I moved out to Salt Lake City, and didn't really pick up a team from there, although I did root for the Jazz during the the years when they were very good. I love Stockton and Malone, but I
was gonna say, did it overlap with their
yeah, I lived downtown when I was in my late teens, early 20s, and yeah, right when they were in the
nice
mid 90s. So
there you go.
Yeah. But I also started playing hockey in high school. My brothers played hockey, so I picked up hockey and started playing hockey, and became, just started watching it on TV, which I hadn't really followed it until that time a lot. Got into hockey a lot, became a big Boston Bruins fan, Ray Bourque, Cam Neely, those years. And that was kind of the team that I just grabbed onto, which, being a huge Dolphins fan, is kind of strange because most Bruins fans are big Patriots fans, which us Dolphins fans are not big Patriots fans. So it's a little bit of a dichotomy there, but yeah, I've gotten more and more into hockey since that time. That's probably my number 2 sport behind the NFL is hockey. So.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, hockey's a great sport. So even if you found it late, right? Even if you found it a little later in life, it's still outstanding sport. Bruins were really dominant back then too.
Yeah, they were a good team for sure. That's the only one of my teams that I've ever seen win a championship was in 2011. So
well done.
For baseball, I was a big Rickey Henderson fan. Growing up, just loved Rickey. Everything Rickey. And so I kind of bounced. Obviously, he bounced to a lot of teams. I could never really.
I was going to say, he moved almost as much as you did.
Yeah, exactly. I could never really be a big Yankees fan when he was there. I remember I was watching, the Cubs, of course, because that was all anybody could watch back then, was the Cubs or the Braves. And I was watching the Cubs game when he got traded from New York back to Oakland. And my gosh, I was so happy. I was just over the moon over that. So, But then he finished up his career, and nobody probably remembers because he didn't play all that much, but he finished up his career up in Seattle, and I was actually had moved up there. After college, I moved up to Seattle, and I lived north of Seattle, so became a Mariners fan. 2001 came, and that was just, pandemonium for the Mariners up there, so.
Yeah.
But I've lived in Arizona now for about 16 years, so I've kind of transferred over to, I still root for the Mariners, but I've kind of transferred over to the Diamondbacks when it comes to baseball, just because I can watch them every night. So.
There you go. They're a pretty good club. They're doing, they've got a decent core right now, and looks like they're not going to trade Marte, so at least you got him sticking
I'm
around.
happy about that. Yeah, they've had some good runs. I like Lavello a lot. Yeah, I think he's a really good coach. I think he does a really good job. So.
Nice. Very good. So as you sit down in front of your gaming table now, like what are some of the games that you find yourself most drawn to these days?
So I kind of have gaming ADHD. I can't play.
Who doesn't?
Like, I see some of these guys that play like the same game all the time and like do whole projects with the same, and I just can't do it. Like, I just don't play the same game. I actually have a little bit of a different system because I hate choosing what I'm going to play. I don't like having to like make that decision. I make enough decisions in my other life that I don't want to do that. So I actually have a list that I keep, and I kind of rotate. I have about 50 games now. So I kind of rotate the games. I have 30 that I really enjoy playing, and so I have that on a list of 30, and then I roll a 30-sided dice just to see what I'm going to play next.
A 30-sided die.
A 30-sided dice, yes.
Okay.
I have a 30-sided die and roll it to. It used to be a 20 for a long time. It was a 20, but I got too many games. I got too many games that I couldn't decide what would go on the reserve list.
Man.
And then number 30, if I do roll a 30, there's another list of 20 games that I will roll a 20-sided die and pick from that game. So, yeah, I know I have a little bit of a sickness when it comes to the gaming, but I think everybody that listens here does too, right? So
yeah.
These are my people.
And we all have our own unique habits about trying to figure out what comes off the shelf. So, hey, 30-sided die. The first time I've heard of a 30-sided die. So that thing's got to be a pretty decent size.
It's a hefty thing, actually. Yeah, it's a hefty piece of dice, but that's pretty much the only thing I use it for, because it's pretty loud when you roll it.
Well, if I was to adopt that system, I need a 120-sided die. So I'd probably have to get like Indiana Jones boulder size to get that to work.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do when there gets to be more than that I want to keep on the full-time game list. But
now you're leaving it up to chance, but do you also find that you will play any game any time of the year, or do you tend to I was talking on my show last week that it's winter and I start to focus a lot on basketball and hockey this time of year. Like, do you find that you like to focus on whatever season it is, or do you find that you're drawn to the things that maybe aren't in season?
Not really. I mean, it doesn't really matter to me. Like I said, I just like the variety.
Yeah.
Like if I've played, if I do roll something a couple of times in a row, or three within a week or so, then I'll put it down to the reserve list and bring something else up for,
there you go.
Just to get, I like the variety. I like to change it up a lot and that sort of thing.
Nice. Very good. And would you say you're pretty balanced across all the different sports with your games?
Yeah, I pretty much have everything. Obviously there's a ton of baseball games out there, so I have a ton of baseball games.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I have pretty much all the ones that you can think of. I mean, I don't, except for I've never played APA and I've never played Strat, which is, I know is weird, but I grew up on Status Pro and that was all I had for ever and ever until I came across Play, and then, I went down the Play rabbit hole and bought everything that Keith's ever made in his entire life. So, and which is definitely change things, and then it's just expanded from there. So.
Very good. So now let's talk co-ops, and obviously for everybody, like we'll qualify with co-ops, just like getting a different group of people together, trying to work on a project collaboratively. And you've been running a number of them over the last couple of years now. And is this something that's kind of new to you, like that you just picked up these last couple of years, or have you always tried to run like leagues or other types of cooperative projects?
Yeah, it's pretty new to me. I mean, I've obviously done like fantasy football and that sort of thing, and I've commissioned that sort of stuff and done those sorts of things, but never really anything like this. It's actually only been about a year since I really started getting into running them.
Was that 70-71 the first one, really?
70-71 was the first one that I ran, yeah. And I played some before that.
Okay.
I obviously I've played, some of the golf ones that have been around and that sort of thing. And then I've, the Paul Salzberg, he runs one through Play and I always found that I was just super excited whenever it would come around, and that was like what I really liked. And then, JC Sports Replays and Kevin Thomas, they run that 1984 baseball community project, and I got into that. And then I bought like Payoff Pitch and started playing that and into that. And I just found, man, I get so much more joy out of playing something like that because of my inability to stick with a game. I can't really stick with projects either, and that's always been something where I've struggled to stick with a solo project because it's just too much, you can't, even if I was doing like a tournament or something, it's just, it would take me so long to get through it and that sort of thing. And I just didn't enjoy it as much as I do all the community stuff. So
I hear you. Yeah. I think one of my earliest co-ops was, it was a computer baseball league, and I want to say it was the APA, like Baseball for Windows, but it was called the Cracker Jack Baseball League, and we always had topper rights. You get to pick one guy from your roster, and you had topper rights, and we would run an auction, and this was like back in the old days of like the AOL, like instant messenger, and we would actually run like our auction on AOL instant messenger. And you'd get to the end, everybody's like throwing their bids in, and he would be like going once, going twice, and then you'd get to the final bid, and then he'd be like, okay, Lou Gehrig, like, $42. And then the guy who had the topper rights, he'd be like, you want to top it? And he would be like, yeah. I can't let him go. Like, it was so cool, but it was just like such a dramatic moment to like wait for the guy to like bite the bullet and be like, yeah, I'll top it by $1. I'll take him.
Yeah.
So fun. So what do you see as some of the key benefits to like the co-op? You said you really started getting into it, and what are some of the things that you felt like really drew you into like wanting to run these?
I think the biggest thing is just that the games will mean something. I'm a big stat guy, so I love, replaying seasons to see how the stats work out and see what they do, but I can't do it by myself. And so I just can't, I don't ever get there. So, the stats, you can keep when you've got a bunch of people pulling in the same direction, and you can finish things, you can get done with them. I think 70-71 when we started it in about February, and I think we finished in June or July of last year. So, I mean, it wasn't, it doesn't take a long time. So you can kind of just see it moving along and going through that. And that's enjoyable for me, like being able to see that progress and see it go through.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting when it's moving it along at a decent pace, right? Because like you said, when you run like your own season, you're like, oh, man, like it took me a week to play like 4 games, and there's only like 1,000 more to go.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It's overwhelming when it's just you, and with the co-ops, and you can play a game and it means something. It's not a one-off game. One-off games were always hard for me because it just didn't mean anything, and it was like there was no stats to it. I could keep track of the stats, but they weren't going to anything and that sort of thing. So I would try to play long seasons, but then I'd go away from them for a while and then try and come back to them, and then it's not as exciting because it's not new, the new things are always taking precedence and much more exciting than the older things.
Absolutely. So you mentioned like to play the role of the stat keeper, and obviously like compiling stats is great and being able to see like the progress and who's having the big seasons. Is there anything else about it that you find is like pretty enjoyable in terms of stat keeping?
Yeah, I mean, I love this. I love stats. Like I said, I've always loved stats. My dad, before he became a priest, he was actually a math major in college and engineer. He was actually in the engineering department in Central Florida when they put the man on the moon. They helped build the lunar module. So he's big math, and so that's it. All comes down to me, and that's just something that I really enjoy about it. But the other thing about the co-ops that I really like is just the bringing people together. I love to see people coming together and kind of just being able to talk about the same things, being able to, be engaged with other people about their games and that sort of thing. That's just enjoyable for me.
Cool. So, I'd like to do retrospectives, and there's two questions I always ask, like what works, what doesn't work. So let's start with like what works. What do you think really works well? You mentioned a couple of things that I think are givens, but what are some things do you think would work really well when it comes to running co-ops?
I think the biggest thing that I've been successful with is the jump in, jump out part of it, where you don't have to commit. You're not taking on a team. You don't have to play a certain amount of games. And that's some of the co-ops that I was in prior to this. It was always it got bogged down because one guy didn't want to play his games or do it. And then it kind of just gets gummed up and everybody starts doing other things because they're waiting. Whereas my co-ops are all, you can play a game here, you can play a game there. You don't have to commit anything. There's no real deadline to it. Obviously if we've moved 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm gonna poke you and say, hey, are you still playing this one or not? Just to make sure that you're still playing it, because people can forget. But to be honest, that doesn't really even happen all that often. Everybody's pretty good about, they sign up for a game when they want to play it, then they get it on their table and they play it. So it's not like you're signing up for something that's like way in the future and you have to remember or anything like that.
Yeah, or sometimes they play the game and forget to sign up for it, right?
Yeah. Well, that I won't name any names there, but that does happen sometimes.
I was like, my God, why did I do that?
Well, I felt bad because it's the one game that I played. So.
I had to pick that one, but it was like, it was still a fun game either way. But yeah, and I love the approach that you're taking, right? With the jump in, jump out, and pick any team you want. Because you're right, like when it comes down to, and we've all been in leagues, right, where you take a team and you're right, like somebody eventually just gets, the time commitments aren't there, or they get frustrated with the team that they have, and it's just like, all of a sudden it's like, all right, well, how do we move forward? Somebody else has to pick up their games or stuff like that. So it's much better when you can just kind of do the jump in, jump out. And I think a lot of other people do too, like the idea that you get a chance to see a lot of different teams, because a lot of times we're looking at these seasons and, I'm not going to pretend I was an expert on 70-71 NHL.
Right.
I had to learn about these teams as I was playing with them. And that's part of the fun for me, is to learn about some of these teams I'm not really familiar with.
Love learning the history of it and different, you get that player on the table that only played in 4 or 5 games. I like that. I think that's fun. It's like, I wonder where this guy is now. He probably doesn't know that he's on my table playing his games.
That's right. Or you find that guy in the roster, you're like, I didn't even know he played for this team, like, because you remember them from some other team, right? So
that happens.
Very cool.
And the other thing about it that that really works is you have to let people play the way that they want to play. And that's always been a big thing for me in these is play the way that you want to play and then share it with us. That don't worry about being locked into playing a certain game or a certain way or a certain, you get locked into that and it puts people out of their comfort zone and it's not as fun.
Yeah.
I want people to just play their game the way that they play it. There's not a lot of restrictions. Obviously, there's some things that we want to make sure are good, but not a lot of restriction. Just play your game like you want to play it and then share it with us. And we'll all do that together and it'll all work out in the end. And that's one of the things I was actually just talking to Joe Cards. Joe Cards is the one that started me down this path with 7071. He put the bug in my ear of he wanted to do a hockey replay, and I said I would participate, and then I'm like, you know what? I'll just try it. I'll just see if I can run it for you. Yeah. And that kind of got me started down all this. And then Joe's he's a pusher on everything. So he goes out and he gets all these people to sign up and do it. And he recruits guys like James Cass to come and play and talk about it on his podcast. And that's the sort of thing. I can remember the first time I was listening to your podcast after, and you said my name as part of it. And my daughter was with me. She's 16. And I'm like, this guy's talking about me on his podcast. And she's like, cool, Dad. I'm like, cool. You don't understand.
Yeah. That's right. You got to let your kids see you geek out every now and again, right?
Yeah. But I was talking to Joe today about, the thing that we have to make sure that we do in all these co-ops is don't sweat the little stuff. That we're running a co-op right now, a Ted Williams replay, and Ted Williams is doing very, very well in his hitting, but and when we broke it down though, I mean it's been like 20 extra singles that he's hit throughout the course of the season. That's put his average up higher than it would be. All the other stats are pretty much in line. There's a human element to it. Number one, you just never, I know over the course of this past year, I've probably input something wrong at some point that has done something different to the stats than what actually happened, I get sometimes where people, they put a goal scored and they give it to somebody on the wrong team. Don't sweat it. I'll get out my red ice hockey and just roll to see who scored and give it to them and then move on. It's just, you can't get caught up in all those little things because it just makes it not fun. It's supposed to be fun.
That's true.
The 70-71 season, boy, we compared some of the stats to real life, and boy, these game makers just blow my mind with how they do it. I mean, even using a lot of express games, we were so close on so many things, and everything was just so in line stat wise. It was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and being the math background, right? Like that's what I always say is like there's a lot of different game designs out there, but I trust that the math works on all of them because I trust that all these people are using mathematical principles and building their game,
Right.
So like that part I'm not usually too worried about. And people are like, oh, they're not going to get exact stats. It's like, well, we've heard everybody talk about it, right? Like as soon as you start rolling die or flipping cards, like it's randomized. So you're not going to get an exact replica. And 20 extra hits over the course of a season or so is like, that's not that much. Like that's
I think we determined it was about one extra single every 6.5 games. So I mean, you're not talking about a lot, and you're gonna have standard variance there. I played poker almost kind of semi-professionally for a while.
Wow.
Back in the day, and standard variance is, you're going to have standard variance. You're going to have those times where just everything, your cards just aren't right. And you got to be patient. So,
yeah. I always reference people whenever they start talking about that like, and I don't know if you've ever watched like Steve Etzel's videos on like YouTube. He does a lot of like breakdown of like baseball games and the mechanics, but at one point he just pulled up an Excel spreadsheet and he just said, generate a random number based on 3 out of 10, and he's like, that's my 300 hitter, 3 out of 10, right?
Yeah.
And he would run it through 1,000 at bats, and he ran it like 10 different times, and he got everything from like a 272 hitter to like a 328. And he just showed like, even if I'm just rolling 3 out of 10 every single time, no other variable, I'm going to get a variance by the time I get through 1,000 at bats. And
absolutely. And isn't that what we love about sports anyways?
That's right.
I mean, that's what we love. That's why we watch, to see what happens. And that's why we play our games, is to see what happens and just see how it goes, and that's the fun of it.
Yeah. So I think you've done a really good job with the co-ops about, not sweating the small stuff, letting people play the way they want to play, as played lineups, not as played lineups, use like the actual rosters or use whatever cards you have generated. You guys have been pretty flexible about letting people play whatever they want to do. And even sometimes like whatever game they want to play too, right? A lot of your co-ops, as long as it can do like for basketball, I can't play an express one if I can't get the stats, because you want to track at least like points, rebounds, assists. And hockey, it's like, as long as you can give me goals and assists and tell me who the goalies are, then we can work with it. And so you have some basic requirements, but nothing that's too restrictive, right?
Yeah. Keep it as free as possible for people to do how they like it. Me personally, I'm not a huge express game fan most of the time, but I've now gotten into playing some of the express game hockey games with it and had some fun with those. But usually I'm a very much a full play kind of person. But I know other people that they don't want to play a full play game at all. They love the express game every time, and that's fine too. So, and it's nice to be able to all just coexist in the same project and keep it going.
Yeah, exactly. And so let's talk a little bit about what doesn't work. I think you've mentioned a couple of things already, but kind of like, even if you want to rehash a couple of them, like, what do you find doesn't work when it comes to the co-ops?
Yeah, I mean, like I was just saying, just getting in the weeds about little stuff, with detail. You can't get in the weeds with the details. And I'm a perfectionist. I am. And I hate even thinking about the fact that I've probably made a stat mistake at some point. I don't like that, but just don't get in the weeds about it. It's not, make sure you're having fun. Make sure you keep things moving. And I mean, if somebody puts the wrong team score, I'm not going to go chase them down. I'm just going to take care of it and move on. And that way it's not stressful for them. It's not, it doesn't take away from the fun just because people make a mistake. I'm not going to go into their box scores and be like, hey, this doesn't work, or, especially like with the football one, I had to just back off because the quarterback passes are not always going to match up with how many receptions there are and that sort of thing. They're just, stuff is not going to match up like that all the time because there's just a human element to it.
Yep.
So you just kind of let it go.
No, that's a good approach.
And then the other thing is that doesn't work, in my opinion, is just the one team, one game, one person, having the same team all the time and trying to do a full replay. I mean, like with the Ted Williams one where we're all playing the same team, that's fine. That just goes quick. Yeah. I know that those guys did a Mario Lemieux one in the same way where you're playing the same, the same team, but you're all playing the same team. Right. Having one person assigned to a team, I just feel it ends up bogging down, and it doesn't work as well, in my opinion. I know that there are co-ops out there that probably have had success with that. In my opinion, it's just that, it just doesn't work for me.
Yeah. The one of the things I always used to preach with the co-ops is like, try to figure out a project that you can do in a limited amount of time, right? Because like, once you get past, to me, like I always found, like once you get past like the 3-month mark, your ability to keep people interested starts to really wane, right? So I always tried to design co-ops that I felt like I could play over a short period of time. Do you Like, I know you're pretty open-ended on them, and I think you've got projects that are going to be all different lengths in time. Do you have any concerns over how long some of the projects take versus others?
Yeah, I mean, some of the slower moving ones are,
Mm,
obviously I'd love to have more participation, but the full play, they tend to be slower moving. I mean,
yeah,
if they're all your games are full play and full stats, they're just going to be slower moving. The NFL one, I mean, it's probably been going probably 4 or 5 months, and we've been doing that one, and we're into week 12. So, I mean, it's not like fast, but it's
right.
moving along. It keeps as long as there's motion and action,
Mm.
I'm fine with it because I mean honestly, I'm going to play these games anyways. I'm going to play something in that regard. And so even if it's just me putting in a game every few weeks when I get to that game,
Mm,
and if anybody else contributes, great, but I'd be trying to do my own project otherwise. So,
mm,
this way it's just has a setup with other people involved. The basketball one, it's full play. So, and it's the basketball games take a long time. They just do.
yeah.
There's no there's no real fast full play kind of, and so it just goes a little bit slower and it doesn't move as fast, but that's okay because when I roll up bank shot or I roll up replay basketball, I've got a game to play and I've got one that matters and fits into something. So I
Nice.
think we're in week 6 of that one. So I mean it hasn't, really moved along a ton. Dave Gardner played player of the game for a little while. That's a faster game. That's a
Yeah.
quick game. So and then there was a few people that played that and put a few stats in for that, which was nice to kind of move it along a little bit. But
Mm,
I don't like the I like playing with the teams. I like the history of it. So I'll play that. I'll play it until it goes through, and
yeah.
everybody else that jumps in, great. The more the merrier. I'm always happy to have anybody in any of the projects contributing.
Yep. Okay, cool. Let's do a quick update. You mentioned a couple of them, so let's run through the ones at least that you're running. I know you have a couple that you're participating in that you mentioned too, but I'm going to use your cheat sheet here too. So you just mentioned 2023 NFL. Let's start there. So you said week 12.
Yep, we're in week 12. Almost, we've got like 3 more games to be scheduled for week 12, and so that one's getting closer
Yep. And that one,
to
that's
being.
a full. You expect everyone to use full play games because you're tracking stats for that one.
Yeah, full stats on
Full
that. Yeah, we
stats.
have. Yeah, I'm doing all the stats defensively, just sacks and interceptions, but
Yeah.
all the offensive stats and that sort of thing.
Okay.
Uh,
75's ABA, that's the basketball one you mentioned. That's in week 6. Obviously, it's a smaller league. I wonder, what is that, like 9, 10 teams in that league?
yeah, there's yeah, I think there was 12, but 2 folded.
Right.
Utah and San Diego both folded, so it ends up being just the 10. I think it's like 390 total games or something like that.
Okay.
It was part of the reason that I picked that is because I knew basketball was going to kind of be a longer one,
Yeah.
and so it kind of cut down on the amount of games. I would like to at some point try and do one with an NBA season, but
Mm.
we're gonna have to have a lot of people contributing, and that's yeah. So
That'll be a tough
hopefully,
one. It's a lot of
it's just a
games.
lot of games, and I'm amazed what they've done, what Kevin Thomas and JC Sports have done with this 84
Yeah.
baseball
Baseball's a
replay, which
lot.
is the reason that I don't have a baseball one, is because I participate in that one,
Mm.
and that works for me. I'm more than happy, but there's so many games, but we're
Yeah.
we're almost, I think we're over halfway now
Wow.
in that season, which yeah. So and with a lot of people contributing, it actually goes pretty quick. I mean, now it's like, man, when I go to pick a game, I'm like, oh man, I'm like 2-3 weeks past because I haven't played for a minute,
Yeah.
and now which is great. I love it. I love it because I get it throughout different times in the season and that sort of thing.
Nice. And I want to say the NFL one is probably, you mentioned total number of games. That one's probably right around 300 also, right? By the time it's
Yeah, I
all
believe
said and
that's
done.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I have 32 teams and
Yeah.
17 games per team. So.
Yeah. I've been amazed with the 75, 76, just how much roster movement there was in that league. I mean, I feel like some of these guys were on every roster.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. And it's, they moved all over with teams folding and that sort
Yeah.
of thing. And yeah, so, but
It's
it's been
crazy.
really fun because this ABA was before my time. I was born at 77, which was just after that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't know a lot of the history. Boy, it's been a lot of fun learning that history. I just
Yeah.
I love learning about all the guys. Every time that I play a game, I go find a picture of the guy and then I end up on his Wikipedia or whatever, just kind of learning about, the different players and that sort of thing. And of
Yeah.
course, there's some names that are definitely recognizable. It's not like they're all, they're all unknowns. There's, a lot of very recognizable guys that even continued to play later when I was into basketball. So.
Yeah, a few of those guys branched into obviously there's a few guys that made it into the 80s and were part of that basketball renaissance of the NBA and stuff. And
Yeah.
obviously a lot of these teams, moved into the NBA as well.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I got some, I mean, obviously the biggest name is probably Dr. J, right? So
Dr. J. Yeah.
yeah,
David Thompson.
David Thompson. Yeah. Moses Malone. They got a few guys that I've been seeing on some of the rosters and some of them are like, the all-time like top 50 NBA guys of all time.
Right.
And
Yeah.
here they are in the ABA. So it's pretty cool from that standpoint too. And that one again, full stats, well, at least,
Full stats.
The three main ones anyways.
Yeah. We do, the points, rebounds, assists.
Yeah. Okay. And then hockey. So the 70-71 we said completed last year. That one got in the books. And now this year since then, you kind of jumped right into 81-82.
Yep.
Which
We
of course
started
is
81,
renowned
82.
for the great Gretzky season, or one
Yep.
of, I should say, because he had like three of them. But.
Yeah, I think this was the one that he had the most points in, 215. So that was,
And it's because I had done the project, right? It's also when he had the 50 goals in like 40 games or whatever it was that he ended up with. He had like this ridiculous start to the season. So,
yeah.
But yeah, that was, so we're in the, last week of it?
We are. Yep. We have entered the last week of the regular season.
Nice.
So just starting to get the playoffs set up and getting ready for that. So that's been fun. Gretzky's not going to make it to 215. He's pretty well short of that.
He
which,
is.
I think comes down to a lot of different factors. I think it's hard to replicate that in a game. I just, that kind of performance is just hard to replicate. And I think we probably don't play him as much as he played in real life.
Yeah.
Not by a significant amount, but probably a little bit. He was always on the ice for that team. So.
Yeah, I think he's one of the guys, and there's other guys like him that are so dominant in terms of their point scoring or goal scoring or whatever it might be, that when you use the finders, you shortchange them. I mean, it's just the roll of the dice is not going to find them as often as it should.
Yeah, it's just it's really hard to replicate that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I played the Edmonton team in one of my most recent games for that, and I think I ended up winning the game 9-0 for Edmonton. And I think I had like 9 different goal scorers. I was like, this is ridiculous. They would not have this many guys score goals for this team. So
right. Yeah.
Cool.
But he is closing in on 200, so I'm hoping that he can at least get to 200. So
he's really close. I want to say he was like,
we're at 189 right now, but I haven't yet entered a few games, so there may be an Edmonton game in there.
Okay. Needs a couple big games.
Yeah. I think he's got 4 or 5 games left, so
he
could do it.
They could do it.
We'll see. Yeah.
Nice. And then you don't have it on your list, but the next one is already planned. Right after this season, you guys are jumping into 93, 94, right?
Correct. Yep. So we've got that all set up to go right into that once the playoffs for 81, 82 is wrapped up.
Nice.
I'll set that one up. I'll do a whole new Facebook group for that just so that it keeps it
Cool.
separate. And yeah, I'm excited about that one too, because that's more for my era. I was very young in 81, 82, so I didn't really follow hockey at that time, but 93,
Sure.
94, that was I think my junior year in high school. So yeah, that's a perfect time for me. So
My favorite part about 81, 82 is like seeing all the guys from the 80 Olympic team that are in the league.
yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, I've been
look at
noticing
that.
that too.
Yep. It's cool. All right. And then the other couple leagues, 24, 25 lacrosse. You're doing the National League lacrosse. That one's pretty early on in the season, right? That was one of the latest ones you started, correct?
Yeah, we just started that one. We're just a couple of weeks in. I know a lot of, I mean, obviously, I don't think there's more than just Lacrosse Blast and Lacrosse Blast Express. I don't think there's more games than that. So yeah, but I love that game. I love Lacrosse Blast. It's a game that I just really enjoy playing. So like I said, I was gonna run the season anyway, so I might as well have it so that anybody can jump in and play.
Nice.
Yeah, I know that one's going to be a real slow burn, but
Yeah,
but it gives me a way to play it, which is
very cool.
nice.
And then the other one that you're about halfway through is the 24-25 English Premier League that you are running through the season of also.
Yeah, we're in week 19 of that one. They play 38 games, and that's been a lot of fun. I'm not really a soccer guy. Never really been a big soccer guy, but I've learned a lot about English Premier League and started watching and that sort of thing as well.
Nice. And the Ted Williams project, you mentioned the Splendid Splinter project. That one actually moved along really quickly, right? I want to say it only took a couple of months.
Yeah, that one went really fast. He played in 130 games that year. And we've had really good participation. So
nice.
We're wrapping that one up. I think there's only like 4 or 5 games left to play, and then we'll be wrapped up with that one. That's kind of been Joe's baby, but I'm helping him with the stats and stuff. It's a pretty easy stat entry because it's just the one. We're just keeping track of Ted's.
Right. Yeah. And that one is specifically with season ticket baseball.
Correct. Yes. Yep. We are just using the one game in that one.
For the one that the 1984 project that you mentioned that JC Sports and Kevin Thomas are running, are they open? Do they allow different games to be used for that one, right?
Yep. Any game that's statistically accurate in that one. So
nice.
A lot of payoff pitch and replay baseball and season ticket baseball. So
cool.
I even created a couple of teams for History Maker.
Oh, nice.
Keith is so kind to give us the formulas to make them. So I don't like to share that too much because I don't want somebody to want me to make the whole league because that's just way too much work. But I do every once in a while just create a couple of the teams based on that and play because I love History Maker baseball, but unfortunately we don't have 84s.
We do not. And my biggest project of making cards for History Maker baseball was I carded every single player that ever played for the Mets and took their best season and just carded everybody.
Nice. Very nice.
Everybody down to the guys who played like one game for them. They had a card and I had everybody. So it's pretty cool. So, and I love that it gives us the formulas for everything so that you can make them yourself. It's great. All right. So where can people find all of your co-ops and some of the other ones? Are you strictly running these through Facebook?
So yeah, I pretty much run everything through Facebook. Kevin Thomas and I set up a kind of a clubhouse for co-ops. So that's definitely the first place you want to start. It's called Sports Sim Co-op Clubhouse. Kevin did an awesome job with creating that one. And then in the featured section is all the different co-ops that anybody has, not just mine, but we're keeping track of any co-ops that people are running.
Oh, wow.
And so that we can get people involved and doing other things. Like I said, I love it when the community comes together and does what the game that they want to play, but plays with, so that we're all kind of loners in this hobby usually, but we can all come together and play together. So.
Well, I think it's great that you guys set up the clubhouse because it is one of those things like, I think we've been finding like I think it's great that people are starting to branch out and create their own groups for different projects and things like that, rather than kind of like spamming a few of the channels. But it was almost getting too fractured, right? Like, so bringing
Yeah.
it back into a central place is really good. Although,
Yeah, having
from the
just some
clubhouse, I guess you
landing
guys
page.
link out to different places. Is that what it does?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I have a different Facebook page for each sport group. Each season has its own Facebook page and then, you have your featured section in that will give you all, it'll give you the Google sign up sheet, and it'll give you all the instructions and that sort of thing. And just a central place. And then we pretty much everybody, there's a few that we don't, but pretty much every game that we play gets shared on that one. And just, like I enjoy, like I said, going in and finding pictures and reading a little bit about the people. And then I just share a quick blurb about the game that I played and the pictures. So just to bring back that nostalgia of the time.
Awesome. All right, cool. So what's next for you? I think we mentioned at least one co-op, but like, what do you got going on in terms of some of your other? Are there any other co-ops that you're planning other than the you mentioned the 93-94 hockey?
93-94 is going to start pretty soon. Joe and I have been throwing around a few ideas for what to do now that the Ted Williams project is coming to a close, but nothing solid yet. But we may end up doing something else in that regard. And then I'd really like to get the football finished, because I would really like to do a retro season for the NFL. I'd like to do something in the 70s or 80s, and go back and have that sort of thing. I picked 2023. That was only the second. I just was doing the hockey and I was enjoying it, and I picked 2023 because I'm a Dolphins fan, and that's the only good season we've had in the last 40 years. So
since 84.
Since 84, yeah. So yeah,
I was going to say, are you inspired by the 84
we still
project?
didn't win a damn playoff game. So we still didn't actually go anywhere because everybody got hurt at the end. But
frustrating.
Yes, yeah. I've thought about. I actually did my own solo project of 84.
I would
with
imagine.
Second season. Yeah, of course. And I think I made it almost all the way through it. I know I think at the end I just finished the Dolphins games, but because I was just kind of getting past it. But yeah, I'd like to go back and do.
How high did Marino's touchdown count get for you?
I think he finished at 46 or something like that.
Okay, that's pretty close.
Yeah, it was pretty close. It was right in that range. So.
I think he had, what did he have, 48? Was that what he
48,
hit? Yeah. All right, you were right in the ballpark then. That's pretty good.
He'd probably throw for 80 in this day and age with the way they play now. So.
Oh, my God. He'd be like,
can you imagine?
Is this even challenging?
Right?
So good. He was so good. Yeah, okay, cool. Retro NFL, maybe something for baseball. Love the idea that you guys have been doing with some of the individual player project. I mean, I know you haven't run those as much, but I love the idea, the Mario Lemieux and the
thought that
Ted
was a great
Williams.
idea. Yeah, and that's because it does. They go very quick, and that wasn't my idea. That was definitely, I think, Joe and Vinny that started that Mario Lemieux, and those are great. And you can do that with a bunch of different players. And
oh yeah,
then I mean, you could even start doing them for different players in the same season, and then kind of compare and contrast and that sort of thing. So
yeah,
that's pretty fun. Yeah.
I did that a couple years ago. I did I did 1994 Barry Sanders.
Nice.
Just replaying Detroit's season, and to your point, just tracking his stats. I kept track in game just to make sure I wasn't overusing other players and stuff, but I wouldn't actually total them up. I would just be like, all right, Herman Moore, we're done with you, and here's what Barry did. It's like, nope, I only care about this one guy's. And, that could be fun for some of the other projects, or, and even, sizing them down could be fun too. I could definitely see, it's hard doing a full season NBA project, but maybe a playoff run, might be fun to do. So
yeah.
Cool. Very good. And if people want to get engaged, where can they go to do that?
And like I said, jump onto that sports sim co-op clubhouse. That's the best place to start and get in there. But go to the Facebook group of whichever co-ops you want to play, and go to the featured section. sign up for a game. Don't be afraid to jump in. Just even if it's just one game, we're love to have you and have the participation there. So there's no commitment to it. You just play your game, send me the score sheet, or post it to the Facebook page, whichever works best for you, and then I'll put any stats together and all that, and take care of the rest. So
And I
it's
think the only thing you guys ever really ask of anybody in these leagues is try not to just cherry pick a certain team all the time, because everybody wants to kind of get a chance at them. But no problem going back to them once everybody's had a chance to pick a game to, maybe go to your favorite team or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I want people to be able to play their favorite team, but I also don't want it to be where somebody can't ever get a team because one person always has it. But
that's right. James took Gretzky again. Come on.
Yeah.
What is he doing?
I haven't had any issues with it. I almost expected to have some issues with that, with people only wanting to play the better teams and not wanting to play the not as good teams. Haven't really had any issues with it. People enjoy playing the whichever teams are out there and doing. I mean, I know like yourself, you always try and hit every team, that you can.
My
which
personal goal.
Is a cool way to go about it. Yeah, definitely. So I'm more of I just randomly, I literally roll dice to find out which game I'm going to play. If there's if there's 14 open games in a week, I'll just do a random number generator and between 1 and 14, and then I'll just play that game. Whatever comes up, because like I said, I hate making decisions. I just want it to be random. I love randomness. I just like to, so I'll do that and do everything randomly on what I'm going to play next, and it makes it enjoyable. So
nice. Yeah, there was one co-op that I was running. I forget what it was for, but I was trying to encourage everybody to mix in and get every team. So I actually had a badge everybody could earn once they made it all the way through the whole league. It was once you've played with every team, you get the badge. So I forget what I called it, but that was the whole goal. Was hey, look, and I think it was one of Keith's it might have even been Football America that we did. So I was hey, there's only 12 teams. 6 games and you can make it through everybody. It's doable. It's totally doable. So very cool. All right, cool. Appreciate your time, Andy. Keep up the good work of running all of these co-ops. It's been a lot of fun for me. I've loved being able to get a lot of different games on the table. As I keep saying, before these, I never considered buying the same season for different games. But this has become a reason to at least pick it up for a couple of different games so that I could use a, variety of games during the co-ops. But even for the ones where it's hey, I don't get a chance to play Dice United that often, here's a reason to get it on the table. And I've really appreciated that you've been running it for so many different sports.
Well, thank you very much. And I appreciate you promoting them and talking about them. And it's been a lot of fun for sure. And I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Talk to you soon.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, James.
All right. First and foremost, thank you to Andy Sexton for taking some time out of your schedule to join me this week for our conversation all about co-op projects. And as we mentioned, Andy's running several of those, and you got the locations to check them out. We will have a link to the clubhouse that you can find on Facebook. That'll be in the show notes. And, what I really take away from this is the idea, some of the things that I've really enjoyed about being in the co-ops is the idea that I can run with any game that I want, that I can jump in and out. And I think those make for really successful co-ops. There are some pitfalls to running co-ops. And I think if you're somebody who wants to run a co-op, there's a couple of ideas. Obviously, there's lots of different forms of co-ops. You can run draft leagues. You can run everybody owns their own team. You can do all those things, but they do tend to run into more pitfalls more often than not, where you have somebody who loses interest, as we discussed, or people that you just start having a harder time getting in conversation, communicating with. And I think that's what makes the jump in, jump out process a lot easier. Or running them the kind of way Paul Salzgeber does, where, we run one weekly, but there's no season long point standings or anything like that are taking place. So finding a way for people to be like, hey, I just want to do this once, we'll get in and out. Like those also make for really successful co-ops too. So, think of the ways that you can reduce the amount of friction that people feel. And I think that's some of the things that Andy's done a really good job of. And yes, he's running a couple of like full play ones that he wants to get the stat gathering. And those are the ones that tend to move a little slower. You heard him saying that, but things that he wanted to stay committed to. I've always kind of thought about trying to keep the total timeline for a co-op like under 3 months. Like if you can keep it under 3 months, usually you can keep interest engaged for that amount of time. And the shorter the time frame you can make it work in, the better off you're going to be in terms of getting the commitment from folks to take part. But yeah, I always think about it like if you can get a lot of people engaged in a co-op, that makes the workload so much lighter on everybody. And it can really lead to a lot of fun things when it comes to these co-ops. So hopefully you find a way to get some engaged in your tabletop experience. And if you've got some ideas on ones that you'd like to be part of, reach out to some of the people in the community like Andy, like Joe Cards, like myself. And, let's talk about what you might want to try in terms of co-ops, because I think they can really be a lot of fun. And that idea of the shared workload really does lead to some successful projects over the long term. All right, next week, we are going to switch gears a little bit, and I'm going to talk about the top 10 underrated sports games. And these will mostly be focused on those games that are outside the big four sports that we tend to talk about more often than not. But until then, thanks for listening.